Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Peak Human Project. Today my guest is Dr. Jeff Beran, who is a friend of mine and also my physical therapist here in Scottsdale, Arizona. He practices out of Evolution Physical Therapy, where he sees folks from the NBA, professional athletes in the NHL, PGA Tour, so on and so forth, and also works with the general population, people like myself. I wanted to have him on to chat about training, rehab, and sort of the melding of those two and how they are sort of distinct and separate from one another, but there has to be a lot of overlap as well. He's got a great mind when it comes to pain science, return to play, return to training, and getting people in shape to lift heavy and get in the best shape of their life with the help of his physical therapy modalities. So I know you guys are going to really enjoy this episode as well. Thanks so much for listening, and welcome my guest, Dr. Jeff Beran. All right, so thanks very much for being
Absolutely.
on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You know, I've been wanted to start this. I wanted to get some interesting people on. So you're my physical therapist. Jeff Beran's your name. You run Evolution Physical Therapy, as you can see from the T-shirt.
Right there.
And you're out of Scottsdale, Arizona. And so we got to know each other through a friend of mine, Michael Ban, or a mutual friend, Michael Ban, who is a coach for Big Dogs, formerly OPEX.
Yeah.
And I was having some back pain, some issues. He said, "Hey, go see my guy, Jeff."
Yeah.
And I was reluctant at first just because I've had some interactions with physical therapists in the past, and it was like, they just have you come back 3-4 times a week and just do some manipulations or something like that.
Yeah.
Kind of more like chiropractor work, which is nothing wrong with chiropractor
Totally.
work, but it wasn't really getting the job done for me. But so I was like, whatever, we'll do it. And it's made a big difference so far for me. And we can get a little bit more into that.
Sure.
But obviously you're the guest, so I wanted to get a little bit more about you and your background. So obviously you have DPT.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about where you come from, where you went to school, stuff like that.
Long story short out of the whole thing, I'm actually born and raised here.
Okay.
In Phoenix.
Okay.
I actually, my first experience with rehab and obviously athletics as growing up, and it wasn't until I went to high school and my mother made me play football. Mm-hmm. My mother was like, "You're going to do it because you got to go meet friends." And I was like 125 pounds, didn't know anything. Ended up, playing high school football, got hurt. That was where my first experience with rehab. Before that, it was baseball, soccer, those sorts of things. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Ended up being fortunate enough to play college football.
Where at?
It's called North Central College in Naperville, Illinois. Cool little school. Was an option quarterback. Had a good 4 years playing football there. They're really good now, so I wouldn't even be able to be on the team anymore. And maybe that's why we were bad, because I was the quarterback. I don't know at times. So, but at that point in time, had fallen in love with sports medicine. So I went to that school. The whole plan the whole time was actually, I was like, well, I'm going to be a physician. I want to be an orthopedic surgeon. That way I can work with athletes and do all, that was my initial mindset. So went to school there. They didn't have pre-med, but they had athletic training. So my first degree was in athletic training. So I get done with school, move back home, planning on going to med school. But in the meantime, I was like, okay, well, I literally worked for the Cardinals for a cup of coffee. It was that quick, because I got into it, went down to the practice facility, I was starting at the bottom, right? I want to get a job. I'm an athletic trainer. Got in there probably a week and a half, and it was, it wasn't much actual care. It was just fill up water bottles, pick up these towels, and that's well and fine, but it wasn't, I was like, I don't want to grind it out for that many years. I don't need to be in sports. That was my thing. And it was like, all right, I'm going to go do that whole med school thing. Well, ironically, I was, at that point in time after that, I was working at a physical therapy clinic here in town and running the tech and the help and doing all that, and met my father-in-law, who was not my father-in-law at the time, who's a physician. And he talked me out of medical school. Now, to this day, he's like, why would I have ever told you that? And I'm like, it's kind of like that Ricky Bobby thing. Like, I lived my whole life according to what you told me that day. It's like, if you're not first, you're last. It's like that thing. So anyway, I was like, okay, because he was, as a physician, he's seen basically the way healthcare has gone. You know, lower returns, higher visits, those sorts of things. He saw the writing on the wall, and he actually told me that. And great. So I liked being in rehab, and I was like, I like this. I like being around people. I like creating relationships with people, learning, getting to meet them, all that. And so said, all right, I'm going to go to PT school. PT school happened. I went to A.T. Still University here in Phoenix. Was going to go to a couple schools in Colorado. This one opened up. Great, going to go here. Got out, did the traditional thing. Got a job working in a traditional setting, and it was great. I got a chance with a good friend of mine to go down and open a clinic and start building a clinic in Central Phoenix. And at that point in time, we were building it up. But as we did a really good job, because I got to the point where, I was seeing 20 and 22 people a day.
Okay.
Now you can imagine what kind of care that is.
Yeah. That's
not.
I mean, in 8 hours, right?
And I love the people that I worked for, and I loved it, but I was getting burnt out real quick, and it was like a monkey could have done my job. And I mean that in the sense of, because I wasn't really doing anything. You can come beat on their back, but then they go exercise. And I was sitting there one day, and this is kind of what led to the point was like, well, if I'm not really doing anything from a manual aspect, and then this leads into kind of, if I'm not doing anything from a manual aspect, like what are my hands doing? They're spending an hour, whatever, exercising. And then I'm going, I hope they get better. And then they're like, well, I am getting better. And I'm like, well, it's definitely not what I'm doing. So what's happening here, right? And it's like, wait a minute. Half the time, some of those people that get better with traditional care, and there's nothing wrong with it, is because maybe they don't exercise. And the fact that their doctor told them they got to go there 2-3 times a week, they're just being consistent for 6 weeks. That's how that happens. And so they were getting better without me, or with me, or that was only because they were there training. And I was sitting there going, now what? Let's put a bigger emphasis on the training aspect of things, right?
Sure.
And at that point, I was like, I got to go do something else. And it wasn't because I love the people there. It was just I didn't get into the profession to do something and then just shove them along. That's just not. It was. So that was 2009, 10. And essentially went through. That's how I met James at OPEX. Okay. So James I just happened to be James Fitzgerald at OPEX, who's been a huge mentor of mine too. Love the guy. But I was just in the right place at the right time. Actually, my wife had introduced me to the right people. She was like, hey, you should talk to my husband. And it turned out that it was James, and they were coming when James was moving down here from Calgary. And we ended up in the same office. And I had always planned on, I was like, I'm going to do this my way.
Yeah. And
if it fails, I'm going to treat people the way I think I should treat people. And if it fails, I can go get a job. It's not that risky, but I'm going to do it my way. Well, luckily here we are, going on 8-9 years. So we're doing well. But that's kind of my, genesis of how I got into where I'm at. And like I say, like anything, right? I've been fortunate enough, I met Michael, because he came in and started shadowing, because I knew James. And prior to that, I search out certain people. And I'm the kind of person, if I need to know something and you're doing something awesome, I'm going to just get a hold of you. Right. And I do that with everybody. I call them up and be like, you don't know me yet, but you will, because I want to learn from you. And it's right, and that's because I don't care if I'm wrong. I want to learn.
Sure.
Right? And I'm okay being wrong. And so it's led to that ability to network. And I'm just fortunate enough to get to do things the way I want to do, but that's because I've been fortunate enough to have mentors myself that have been nothing but gracious with giving away their time for free,
Yeah, so, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, so for me, to explain a little bit about the difference, usually I've gone to physical therapists where it's like you said, they got you on the table and they just kind of doing some stim or whatever the case is, doing some manipulations, and then maybe a little bit of easy stretches and rehabs that they show you, send you home, say, come back a couple days a week, we'll get it knocked out. But with you, it was a lot different. When I came in, there was an assessment of how I was moving, what was triggering my pain, all that kind of stuff, which maybe isn't new, but there was immediate relief with some modalities you did with me, then getting me out. Actually, your office here has a gym, so you actually have barbells and weights and all that stuff. You're getting people out there retesting their patterns right away. Yeah. So there's sort of a melding of strength and conditioning and rehab there. Right. Which is kind of unique.
And it is, because it's, again, going back to that previous thing that I was talking about, like, the only thing that changes a person is stress, right? It's what breaks you down, it's what builds you back up, right? At the very basic level, like, it's stress. And so, and this is just my own, like, the light bulb went off, and it was, and I've always liked training, and football and athletics, and I've always liked training, and it's like, sometimes in therapy, we don't even, like, touch the dosage needed for someone to get a training effect. You know what I mean? Like, we don't work them hard enough. And I was like, wait a minute, there's some of the better strength coaches, because now I tell people, they're like, well, because they do say it's the way you do therapy is different. And I say, well, yes, because it is a test, treat, retest, did we do anything formula, right? Like, I want to make sure I'm not wasting your time. But on the other hand of that, it's like, well, we got to put you back out there and stress the tissue, the brain, the person, the human in front of you, and also get them to say, yeah, it is better, and I need to load that and get those tissues to adapt one way or the other. And like I was saying before, I just think sometimes that the PT, it's like stretchy bands and stuff. Like, that's what people know it for. Sure. It's like, oh, I went to therapy and they made me use these stretchy bands and these bands, and it's like, I make little old ladies use those big hip circles. Sure. Like, because I don't think those little stretchy bands do anything. Like, let's make you work a little bit. And people have more in the tank than I think they give themselves credit for a little bit. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, I guess there's probably a difference. I'm sure you work with people who are at the lower end of fitness, like you said, like people who are maybe older and maybe have never trained before, just have back pain coming in here. It's probably a hard sell off the bat to be like, hey, we're going to load you up a little bit. It's kind of what you need. It's never done it before. And then I'm sure you work with people. I lift weights, something I like. I'm sure you work with some professional athletes who are used to getting loaded up. And so where do you think, do you think that, how do you go about addressing where to start people out as far as like what somebody can handle given like what they're used to? Is it more about the diagnosis and like how you're seeing that the tissues are responding?
It's a lot about that, because if you look, so say I take Sally, who's a 55-year-old female that just plays tennis, right? And that's all she wants to do is play tennis, but doesn't lift, maybe goes to Pilates, maybe, Number one, that's had just the way you would do it with your client. It's like, here's what are we trying to achieve first? Sure. What is the intent behind why you're here? And I want my pain gone. Yeah, I get that. But like, what else?
What are you trying to do with
when that's done, what do we want? Right. Because let's look at this goal setting thing here. Because the pain thing, a lot of times that goes away relatively fast. Everybody's different. But I'm not saying it's like, all right, but we can normally manage that pretty quick. Then, like I say, again, the intent behind the training. What are we going for here? You want to be a better tennis player? You just want to hang out with your kid? Because at that point, then we can modify some of that. And that is where, with a James and Michael and a lot of the strength coaches that I've been fortunate enough to learn, that's where I've learned a ton of stuff, is how do you get the buy-in a little bit? And number one, it's really simple when, like, for example, this morning I had a gal come in and I've got hip pain. Well, it was lumbar derivative hip pain, right? Like, we go through the history and everything's pointing, the questions that I ask and just pointing towards, it's very similar to what we were talking about with yours. And here's what I do. I do Pilates, and it's like, well, if I'm going to make you move and then we're going to treat it, and whatever modalities that anybody uses to manage someone's pain, then I'm going to teach you how to keep that away. Okay, so like you say, determining that trigger, right? Because if I can take that trigger, what I did, now the buy-in, like it's very simple to get buy-in anymore. It's still sales, right? But I'm not snake oil sales. I'm going to show them and let them figure it out on their own, and then we can show them how they can keep it, right? Teaching someone to take care of themselves is truly what a doctor's, the definition.
Sure.
You know? And we did that, right? And she's like, I didn't touch her hamstring. I did a little bit of treatment, did a couple of, her hands are on the floor, and she's like, that doesn't hurt my pain's gone. Great, now she's going to do whatever I tell her to do. And this is where, and honestly, in healthcare, this is where people can go, now I need you to sign up for X amounts of visits, I need you to buy this, and people will do it.
We'll do it, yeah.
And they will do it because you were the one to make their pain go away. And it's like, no, here's what we need to do, you know. Let's go and let me show you these 3 things that I just did that you can do at home. And she's like, that's it? And I said, yeah, because we dug deep enough into an assessment, just like you do with your clients as well, into the whys and the whats, that I don't need a list of exercises to try to napalm the thing. I can be more sniperish, right? Sure. Because it's worked out that way. And from a standpoint of getting that buy-in, like you'd asked, I mean, that right there, they'll go, okay, what else do I need to do? And then I'm like, well, if we can feel that good, where do we want to get? And it kind of branches off from there, right? Because they initially, I want my pain gone and I want to get back to what I was doing. Yeah. Once their pain's gone, even sometimes in the first visit with some back issues, they'll be like, well, you know, I haven't played tennis in a while, or
now
I haven't
all
done
those things that they've
and they're
used
like,
to think
yeah,
that they wanted to
and
do.
then it's like, okay, now we can build a training program. And see, and the beauty is I surround myself with people that are just better at everything than I am, in the sense of I know what I'm good at.
Sure.
But then I surround myself with coaches that I can dish things out, because I tell people I'm just a mediocre strength coach that can deal with pain. Like that's how I label myself, right? Rather than like I was saying, you're a different kind of physical therapist. No, I'm like, I want to be thought of as like a very average strength coach that can deal with pain, that has really good strength coach friends that he learns from. You know what I mean? Like, so, because that's what I do at that point, because I think everything is just training, you know, and when you talk about what type of training, it does depend, but then sometimes people just need, like we were talking about today, some people just need to learn how to move again. Like, and not even moving differently, or when there's pain, can you change how you train around it? Can I teach someone with back pain, like we were talking about with bracing? Can I give you another way that changes the input and the output and lets you keep training? You know, that's to me therapy, you know, and let get out of the way of the body. Give you some way and keep training, and get off of what we're picking that scab, and keep training and let the body do its thing, and it will, you know.
It's funny you say that, because it's like you say you're a strength coach, you can deal with pain. I feel like I'm a strength coach, and I want to be able to help people who are in pain, but I have a limit, right? I don't have a license to do that. Yeah. So, you know, I think there's especially within my profession, I guess, as an online strength and conditioning coach, it's almost like I see a lot of people afraid to refer out their clients to people like yourself who can, you know, I couldn't have taken my case, say, and fixed it without the help of somebody like yourself.
Yeah,
I would have needed to refer myself to somebody else.
Coaches need coaches too, right? And it's the same sort of thing. And I think part of the issue, like, and that's what's hard with, you're online and you have other coaches and that you mentor and things like that, and they say, well, I don't want to refer them out because then they're gone, right? And that's part of the problem with like, that's my practice. That's why we do that whole once a week. But I have coaches too, or I have other things where it's like, if I can teach you what to do, you first of all have to fix this anyway, right? Yeah. Like I can't, what we were talking with today about I can't fix that. You have to figure, my job is to make this a nice, pretty package that you understand how it works, the instruction manual, and work on it on your own until it becomes the way it becomes. And so I just gave a talk a couple months ago to like the guys at Lifetime, and I said, listen, I was laughing because they brought me in to do a talk. It was on diastasis recti or something, but it was interesting because I said, I'm not here to market to you guys, but you are exactly who I market to. And I said, normally though, you'd send your person to therapy, right? You're going to go 3 times a week for 6 weeks. And I said, the problem why trainers and coaches don't want to refer to therapists is because it takes money out of their pocket.
That's true.
My other standpoint is I'm like, well, God, man, there's some people right there that are really good situation to be able to do the rehab. If we can teach everybody, because strength coaches are like my triage. Like, they know when they can deal with things and when they can't. Sure. But in my practice, they'll come to me, we teach them what's wrong, get a hold of the coach. The coaches are pretty educated people. I'm like, here's what I found, here's what we're doing. They're going right back to their coach where they enjoy it. They get the, they're with their friends, whether it's at a CrossFit gym, whether it's with just a regular strength and conditioning gym, and they're back training. But they've got, and that person says, wow, okay, great. And then that client's like, man, he really cared. He sent me to a guy, got a result. I'm back here training. And you're showing that, you're not keeping that person around because you need them. It's, you got to pay for the car or pay for the house. It's like, you need to go and do this. And then they go, man, thank you. And then same sort of thing. It's like, I'm not going to sit here and keep you here, because if I can teach you what to do and I can teach Andres what to do, and he knows what he's looking at after we get this under train. Yeah. The gym that gym's no different than my gym.
Sure.
Turn it, do your rehab there. It's an understanding, right? It's an understanding.
Yeah, I don't think, I think early on it's intimidating when maybe you're trying to get clients and you don't, trying to pay your bills, right? And the thought of losing one is a big deal, because that could be the difference between the lights being on, the lights not being on. But I've never had a client not come back after I've sent them somewhere else in the meantime.
Totally.
They appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
That you're at least
like,
honest.
You're looking out for them too, right?
You're saying, hey, you know what? I've reached the limits of what I can do for you.
Right.
I need you to go see this person.
Yeah.
And
it's the same way when I have mine here. And I can write up some decent programming for what I see in different workloads and different tempos, like we're talking about, and just different energy systems to address. But it gets to a point where I'm like, this is not what I'm good at and what I want to do. And now it's time for you to go over here and go see Andres or go see Michael or go see whoever we've got that's closest to you or whatever works, because their knowledge of what they're good at far exceeds mine. And now that's the network that you build, and saying you need to go back, and it's on the other end, referring out to the coaches that I know to say, here's another person. They want to do X and Y, and you know how to program properly, and you can address the nutrition then. I address it through, there's some basic things that I make people do here to help lower inflammation, some different things, and it's suggestions. But like, my knowledge goes to here on their flip side of that, right? And now your knowledge of training and how do I get that, and great, now we have a team, and that person's going, wow, my back feels better and I'm getting stronger and it doesn't hurt to be in the gym anymore, and X, Y, and Z, and they're like, this is pretty cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like a team, right? It's like in professional sports, there's a strength coach, there's an athletic trainer, there's a physical therapist, there's a team doctor, and it's like the whole team needs to be there to help the athletes. Not just because there's a lot of athletes on a team, but the strength coach there to make sure that when they're healthy, they're in good shape to get on the playing field or on the court.
But you got to have the network,
right?
And it's huge, to have a network that you can trust, and it's like what you're going to get.
Oh right? Yeah. I think the tough part about being online is like, if somebody's local, I got the people here. Yeah. It's like finding the people that this person lives in Michigan. All right, do I know anybody in Michigan? No, just I have to reach out to you and be like, do you know anybody in Michigan? That gets tough, right? Yeah. But it's not impossible either.
But most of the time we do. We can find them something, Sure.
But what are some of the most common issues you see? Like I'm dealing with some back pain. A lot of people in powerlifting specifically, it's like back pain out the wazoo. From the last 5 years, I'd say we'd see so many promising powerlifters just their back just tweaked and they can never recover from it. But what being that you work with a large variety of people, what do you see really common?
I love spines. Yeah. Like, because they're hard. And I like the chronic spine stuff. The Instagram-y spine stuff that you see where it's like, oh, I was 90% better in one visit. That's not that hard. It's just no one wants to put the tough ones on, and say, hey, this person's been working their tail off for 6-8 months. They've had 5 years of chronic back pain, 2 failed surgeries, blah, blah, blah. Like, I like those because, you got to change a lot of stuff, but you keep those people moving. And so I do a lot of that. And then you get everything else. I don't, I get hips, knees, shoulders. Those are not hard. That's just some training tweaks and things. But I like the complicated spine things, and with the athletes and stuff, a lot of times, baseball season will be up here in a little bit, and we'll get some of those guys for spring training. We get, and a lot of those things common across the board is they're, like we were talking again earlier, force production, right? Like, and where are you leaking energy? Where are you, that you may not even know, right? Like, you get to athletics at that level, or lifters that can pull a lot of weight, right? And it doesn't come, I'm not going to give you some little exercise that makes you be able to pull more weight. Like, you're already deadlifting 400 pounds. Like, you can't do PT exercises that make you go from 400 to 500. It's just deadlifting more, right?
Sure.
So when you look at it, it's like, now when I watch, I'm looking at them going, where are we missing some things? Where, like today, with that brace, like, where are you missing some things? And you're leaking energy these places, and and you see that a lot with pitchers, okay? And that cascade of, take for example, I'll go last year, baseball pitcher coming in, young kid, but still playing, has played minor leagues, major, minor, just gets called up for spring training, trying to go, but he's like, man, I went from throwing 97 to I'm at 92. You got to help me. And it's like, okay, well, did he get weaker? Did he get an injury? He goes, no, the velocity's just gone. I just can't, like, they call it dead arm in baseball. And it's like, all right, well, tell me, going through a history, right? He's had histories of back issues. He's had histories of neck issues. He's had history. Granted, athletics, right? Like, okay.
Everybody's going to have a little.
Yeah, right? Like, you're going to get hurt playing sports. And we go through and start looking, and this brings us back to the weightlifting, is like, I got into some neurodynamics with him, right? And yes, these are some of my biases that I think happen, and willing to have the discussion about what really happens. But I put him in a position, say, throwing a baseball, right? And you've got to get here, and we're here, and this arm's got to be able to move. And I get out here with this neurodynamics, and this guy can't get his elbow, and his head won't even move from here. So we sit there, and he looks, and he's like, his shoulders, he's got some bicep tendonitis stuff. He's actually got some medial elbow pain from throwing, but his shoulder's sitting up by his ear. Go through, you look at that, and you're like, no crap that your trap is holding you up there, because if I don't depress it, he can't move. If I let him go, he can do the whole thing, and he can throw.
His body found a way around it.
Got around it. So we get in and treating it, and they've been stretching it and doing everything. He'd been doing whatever he could do to make it better. Get into it, clean up some different stuff, give him a few days, clean it up. He gets his arm, and in the case of a week, he's like, there's the velocity back. And it was just because that peripheral nerve that wasn't painful.
Sure.
Wasn't like I got tingling or anything. I didn't have any, oh my God, tingling my median nerve. None of it. Just his body, prior to letting that get injured, in the assumption is saying, I'm going to split myself in such a way that I can't get my shoulder into a position to transfer force to get that. And he lost 5 miles an hour on his pitch, right? Week later, he's like, what the hell happened? And I'm like, we see some things, we deal with them, and deal with the variables until there's no more variables, right? And it's fun, but that's the method with going through some of those things and saying, yeah, let's look at some of those. And neurodynamics, to me, the three best things that I've ever learned is dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, DNS. It makes sense to me. It's simple, okay? It's not convoluted with a bunch of jargon. It's just saying, here's how humans develop, and here's what we think, happens. And it's an umbrella thing, right? Learning how to brace and all, that's all it is saying, here's, when you're done with your treatment, like when we're done and you're better, I just think that DNS and how they talk about bracing is just basically saying, do whatever you got to do to get there, but when it's done, it should look like this, right? And so that neurodynamics and assessing the nervous system's effect from life, it's not always just joints and ligaments and tendons and muscles. It's there's a nervous system attached to that, and I don't think we give it enough credit. Some people do, but on a whole, as my profession, I don't think we do. And overhead athletics, right? I mean, you got a barbell on your back, and we're snatching, and we're getting a lot of that, right? And I see it all the time. And it's like these things where people are like, that didn't take very long, and I'm like, fantastic. But
going back to the picture, so he didn't have any pain, like numbness, tingling, anything like that. Do you think that eventually that would have appeared?
It's hard to say. I won't assume, and I'm not gonna, because it doesn't have to. Maybe, but he had some shoulder discomfort, which is what brought him in. It wasn't just I got to go find a PT. I got low. He had some shoulder pain, but he was saying it's. He thought that was what was affecting. That's an effect of like you protract your shoulder and you're throwing, right, and you're just beating up different things and stressing things, and that allowed us though that door actually opened up, fixing that relative and giving him the way, and he's like, wow, yeah, that's better. Just feels better. To then getting into that next one, well, I've had this thing with my hip driving off the rubber, and I got this hip thing, and then we got into some of that, and he's like, the drive leg and then the stance leg, and being able and just clean some things up where it was, and I'm by no means like a baseball guy, like go Cressy's like the dude, go learn from that man, but it's just, I think, if we want to be the baseball guy or the hockey guy or the football guy, no, I don't know anything about tennis, and I work with tennis players, but it's like I know what the sport means and how people move. And again, like a strength coach, it's like I'm going to deal with you as the athlete and how you're moving right now, and then let the tennis coach take you and do some of those things, or you know what I mean, and let the guy who's specific in that. I'm not going to make you swing a racket in my gym. Like, I'm going to make you where you look deficient in certain things, and let's let that coach do what they're supposed to do. Again, going back to that team mentality. So
it's like I just had a guy sign up, and he plays soccer out in Europe. I'm not a soccer guy. I'm not a specialist in soccer. But what I told him was, hey, you know what? Eventually, you're going to get to a point where you play for a team. You're going to have a dedicated soccer guy. In the meantime, what I can do for you is I know the principles around what goes into soccer training, what you need to get better at soccer. We're going to assess to see where you're deficient. We're going to build you up there. Hopefully that makes you a good enough soccer player to then get into a team. And then I'll lose you as a client because you're going to be on a team. You're going to have a guy. But maybe in the off season he comes back.
Totally. Like, and I think I kind of look at it as like you have, general physical preparedness, right? But then you can have like subspecialty of like soccer general physical preparedness, right? Like I know enough, like tennis. I know enough there. But then when you got to get into the specific, that like we're talking about, you're going to have a guy that knows the specific demands of the sport and the position that you play and what you need to do. Well, let them do their job, right? Don't think you have to be like
Yeah, that's the thing is I think early on I thought I had to be an expert in every single subject.
Totally.
You just can't. For one, you can never be an expert in every subject because you end up being mediocre at everything.
Yeah.
So why not just maximize what you're good at?
Yeah.
And to me, understanding principles is what you should be good at.
True. And it's kind of the same way when I started this practice was like, it's a cash pay practice. And when I started, it was 1 and 2 people a day. And the stress of it was, it's the same way you're looking at it. The stress was, oh my God, I have to fix everybody. I need to learn it all because I have to fix everybody. That didn't lead to too many good health things that were going on for a while, just stress-driven health things. Until one of my mentors goes, why do you think you're fixing them anyway? And I'm like, yeah, because that goes back to previously when I was like, they were fixing themselves with exercise, but I wasn't. And I'm like, what the hell? That led to a change in that same thing. I just need to be able to provide an understanding and a framework of what they're supposed to do. And if that person lead that horse to the water, if it doesn't drink, it's not my problem.
Sure.
You're paying me to understand what's going on. Just like, You can have someone pay you, and you're going to program the hell out of it, but if they don't do the program, they could be mad at you. It's not your fault. You can't make, and so I think that's an important thing, is realizing, just like you said, you can't know everything. I can't fix everybody, but you got to seek it out and try to know you got to try to at least know a little bit about everything, right? But I'm not claiming to be a neurodynamics expert. That's why I go learn from Michael Shacklock or DNS, and I bring my buddy Rich Olm to town, and he and I geek out over that over some wine and talk about that, and you just got to surround yourself with that, because the more that I know, that makes my network bigger to go, if I don't know that, or this person needs X, I can send them to that person,
Yeah. I think, so going back a little bit, I'll talk a little bit about my back issues. So, and the reason I asked about the pitcher and whether eventually you think you'd have pain, because I think for me, my body was finding ways around my deficiencies.
Yeah.
And it was doing all right for a long time. I got really strong. And then eventually it was like, dude, we can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I got pain. That pain's been there for a while, and it gets better, and then it gets worse. And then I started seeing you, and it's gotten better. And we're still working on it, but that's probably just going to be the way it is. Because one thing that I didn't notice, like you told me earlier, is like, even as a coach, I thought I was bracing correctly the whole time. Like I couldn't feel that I was losing tightness. But then you did a little bit of that stuff with me, and it's like, oh, I am losing tightness, and that's exactly when my pain is getting triggered. But I think what fascinates me, I guess, is where is this sort of like event horizon, or this threshold where, like, some people have a bunch of herniated discs and a bunch of shit going on and no pain.
Right.
And then some people do have a lot of pain.
Yeah.
It's like, so where is this? Is it just that different people have different resiliency or different thresholds? Is it, what's going on in their life that might be triggering more of that pain? Like, what have you seen? Have you been able to make any sense of that?
Yeah, and the answer is, I don't think that we really know. I mean, it honestly is. Like, I won't sit here and go, well, this person does this and this does this.
Yeah.
What I can tell you is that, like we've seen all the research and everybody knows, as you get age, you can have asymptomatic disc bulges. It's like wrinkles on your face, and you get wrinkles on the inside. Like, we just age, and what we do for work and hobbies, and that's going to play into those things, right? That leads me to, every time I tell people, it's the same thing I told you. It's like, you don't have back pain because you're weak or because your hamstrings are tight. But a lot of times what happens is, and again, this is my belief and my bias, and it's habitual patterning. We are creatures of habit. Humans are creatures of habit. You wake up in the morning, guarantee you do pretty much the exact same routine every morning.
Pretty much.
And you get in your car, and you don't really think about where you're driving. You end up there sometimes. Yeah. It's just you're running on autopilot, and it's just, this is what we do, and your brain doesn't need to waste a lot of energy. So it's the same way with which we move, right? When we move, like we talked about with your back, you can get down right on that lower segment of your L5, and you're like, oh, I didn't even know. But that is that fulcrum point. And I guarantee you, if I go, and I love looking at imaging. People don't like MRIs. Oh, don't do MRI. I like them because I love reading. I just love looking at that stuff. Like diagnostic ultrasound. There, right? Diagnostic ultrasound. I love that stuff because I love information. I'm not over pathologizing anything. I just want to see if there's something in there that can help. And you're right. And I guarantee maybe there is. But I'm not sitting there and going to scare you and go, you have a bulging disc, you shouldn't squat or deadlift. That would be stupid. Right. The answer is saying, what are you, like, we would look at that MRI and go, maybe we go, man, L4 and L5 and all those, the discs there, they look beat up. Yeah. Because based on your clinical findings, which that MRI should match before I even take it seriously, right? We should go, okay, well, that's where all the stress is going. That's a picture, and that beat up segment didn't happen in a week. That is stress over time and your body's adaptation to deal with stress, right? Yeah. So again, now that tells me, well, if that's what's happening there, my thought on rehab is like, reverse engineer the whole thing. Mm-hmm. If you're beating that segment up and it's leading to nerve root irritation, and how do we take the stress there and just disperse it and get it away from there and teach you? And so that is where the bracing comes along. You have a strategy with which you brace, okay? And you're like, I'm doing it, but it's not working. Can I give you another, can we still train, and can I give you another way? Like, just keep moving though, right? The answer is not don't lift. It's like, we talked about, Oberst was like, don't deadlift. Well, he didn't really mean that, and it's like, no, you need to find a way to lift. Maybe you're not a barbell deadlifter. Maybe not I have people that I'm like, we're never going to barbell deadlift, but doesn't mean we can't trap bar deadlift. Like you can get build a monster with a trap bar. Like, doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
But again, being someone that wants to use a barbell and compete again, we better figure that out, right? Yeah. Like, if that's what you want to do, there's a way to do it. And so it's taking rehab and saying, here's what you're doing at your spine. And you're just like, I can lift a lot of weight. It's just not letting me, because we're still doing the same thing, and you kind of don't realize it, right? Yeah. Like, it's like, okay, I'm strong, I'm this, I'm that, but why is my back still hurting? That's where coaches need coaches. And, I went to, funny story, same sort of thing. John Russin's a friend of mine, and he's a great guy, and we talk. And I met him because he was doing that YouTube thing with Dave Tate.
Okay.
Right? Fix Dave Tate thing. And rather than be a dick, I was like, I had some questions, and I don't social media go blast him, like, to make myself look cool. I messaged him and then called him. And because of that, we developed a friendship.
Yeah.
And he was like, I appreciate that, because most everybody blasts everybody on social media, right? Telling everybody how stupid they are, right? So I went out to one of his courses. He's like, come on out to Seattle. I'm like, sweet, come out to Seattle. Go out there, hang out with him. I'm at his course. Good course. But I trained with him. And I'm thinking, I got this, right? I got this. Like, what's he going to see? Yeah, I think I'm pretty good, right?
You're
Same sort of thing.
Therapist.
What's he going to see?
Yeah.
Man, I'll tell you what. So we went into deadlifts. And he's like, yeah, right there. And I'm like, what right there? He's like, I'm going to film it. Do it again, right there. And it was literally, as I would pull, I'd take the tension out of the bar, I'd be here, I'd start to pull, I'd get a little bit of a bend in my knee and let the tension go in the posterior chain, and basically, like, still use my ass to pull it up, but I was like standing up with he's like, don't do that. And it wasn't even a lot of weight. It was probably 135 maybe.
Yeah. And
he's like, keep that tension there. And we trained that. It was the worst flight home, because my hamstrings were destroyed. And I didn't even think it was the same idea. I was like, I got this. And he's like, nope, you're not feeling it. Nope. Right. And I'm like, 135, pulling it. And I'm the next day on the plane, I'm like, holy hell.
Yeah.
Your
hamstrings were never really doing the work.
They weren't doing, yeah. And again, just like you, I was like, I thought I was doing what I should be doing. And that's what I mean by another set of eyes, another perspective.
Yeah.
For him, I like I say, I don't know, he saw it. I don't know. I don't have many people look at it, but like, I was like, okay, that opened my eyes to some things too,
Sure. I think for especially when it comes, I guess I shouldn't just say for powerlifting. I think this happens with everybody, where it's like with the pitcher. The body found a way to work around whatever shortcomings was going on. And so I think the same thing happens with all movement and I'm sure you would agree that, like, for me, my body found a way to get the bar off the ground and lift a lot of weight, even if it wasn't the most biomechanically sound way to do it, right? And then so the neural pattern got built.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, my body's comfortable with that. It knows it can resort to that to lift the weight off the ground.
Correct.
So what would happen is maybe I would start with perfect form.
Yeah.
And then the body was like, nope, that's not going to work. Go to the
it's like English is your first language. Yeah. You want to learn Spanish. Well, you're going to try to talk Spanish. When it gets hard, you just revert back. It's the same thing.
Especially when you get stressed, right? When you get under stress, your body wants to go back to what's safe.
And then you try doing that under fatigue or that stress, right? And now you're trying to brace and breathe, and that's where I believe, like, I'm not a hater of CrossFit. I think some of it's people don't need to do it, but like that's where people get injured in some of that. It's not one dumb lift, or it's not, but it's combining those lifts with work capacity, and those people are getting off a flywheel bike or doing something where now they're trying to breathe. Their brain is going, I am maxed out right now. And now we have to go pick that up, and they're getting these brain farts, and that's what's leading to my back went out, And I think it's like, well, if we can regress that back a little bit, and say, well, what happened there? No, it's not that you somehow were weak. And no, it was the combination of trying to figure out how to breathe and brace, and you're low on oxygen and your brain's freaking out, and you've got it in this state of it's like, oh shit. And now you're trying to lift and just get the workout done, and you're there and people are having fun. Right. But that's what happens. And I think that's where a lot of that comes into play. I don't think CrossFit's bad. I think certain things for certain people in CrossFit are bad, right? But that's fitness. That's not even, I won't even use the term CrossFit. I mean, anything can happen in the gym. It's how it's programmed. And I think, how you deliver that and how you train and get that person, because I do that in people. Like if you're going to deadlift, okay, and once your back's better, I'm going to test that same thing. I'm going to, even though you're a power lifter, and power lifter's like I'm going to lift one rep and I'll be back in like 10 minutes and do another one, right? But to make sure that we've got it, because people go, yeah, I'm better. They're in therapy. I'm moving better. But they've been doing like 3 sets of 10 or whatever it is, right? But what about when you're back out on that court? Or what about when you're back and you're breathing hard, now you've got to perform?
Sure.
Well, we better test that a little bit. I think we better test that.
Yeah.
And that's part of, like, for me, depending on the person again, that's part of my diagnose or my discharge criteria with people. It's like, you're going to work your tail off and make sure that if you get under that bar, that even under fatigue, we can still see that we're getting what we want, that you have learned what to do, because that'll pull out if you've learned it or not. Like, because if you're tired and you go right back to what got you into trouble, did I really fix anything?
Right. I would say that even with respect to powerlifting, maybe they're not going to ever be under physical, like being tired and having to hit a set of 10 reps or whatever, because they're doing sets of 3, sets of 5. But what if they've had a bad night of sleep the night before? Then their job, something happened to their job, their wife just called and their kid's sick, like they're under all this stress, they're not thinking correctly. That's when bad habits would rear their head, even on a single, and all of a sudden that pain is back. And
it's like anything with sport, right? You want to fall back onto what you've learned, right? That's why you train.
Right.
That's why soldiers train, because they don't train, they train so that they fall back on those habits of what they learned, and they're just automatic. And it's the same thing with that break. Like, even if you have a garbage day at work and you slept and you went out and partied and you're hungover and whatever, you come in, at least we know what we're going to get as far as that movement engram, that neural program is there, and you want to say, people will tell you, oh, it doesn't matter how you brace or how you move. And I'm like, well, I'll just agree to disagree, because you can round your back, you can do this, like that's the whole thing we see, right? Get into the pain stuff. Yeah, sure, pain science, right? But it does matter.
Sure.
Does it matter? It mattered today.
Matters today, yeah.
Yeah, it mattered with what you were doing, and it's like, it does matter. Does it matter forever? Maybe not. Right. Can you flex your back? Sure you can. You're sitting there with it right now. But like under certain circumstances, I would be like, nope, you're not. Don't do it. It'll hurt you again. It's just, you're already set up for it, right? Like, not because you want to. It's just the way it is, and you have certain rules with which you got to play the game now.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to the baseball pitcher, right? Would that lead to something? I believe that there's that disc only has so many. You just sit there. I mean, it's proven, and I don't care what people say, how they think about McGill. I think he's a brilliant man. He's tested it. Like, I have to go with the guy who's done the 30 years of research with that stuff. Like, he sits there and takes spines. Like, there's only a certain amount of load and flexion that your spine can take. Now, is that today, tomorrow, 10 years down the road? I don't know. But you keep doing those things and it's going to happen. Why do we see people with so much back pain?
Yeah. It's crazy. There's so much of it. But it's funny that it happens with people who lift heavy weights. It also happens with people who they never lifted a weight in their life, and they just end up in your office because of bad posture. But again, maybe it happens later in life, but it's the same concept, right? They've used all of those incorrect movements that they had in the bank, and now
and I have a hard time even saying they weren't incorrect. They weren't incorrect until they were incorrect. I guess it's like, do you open Pandora's box and go, Everyone, everyone braces horribly. Well, I don't think it's a problem until there's a problem, and I wouldn't mess with it. I keep people training and keep them moving. And you don't want to create, I'll use the pain science thing. You don't want to create a nocebo or a fear when you don't really need to. I agree. Let them, if they have a little bit of flex, if they have no pain, let's just keep training, right?
Yeah.
Unless you see it being this red flag where you're like, this is gonna be bad if I don't do something, right? Yeah. And then at that point, then you fix it. But like I said, with you didn't brace bad, but for you it was bad. So now we have the opportunity to dive deep and really fix it, and that's rehab to me. Like the lady today I had, she's like, I use the belt and things that we were talking about, and she's like, I have always sucked my stomach in. I was like, well, there it goes. Like, we can go down that psychological rabbit hole of how you've trained. You're a female, maybe society telling you got to suck your gut. Like,
yeah.
And now she's like, yeah, it doesn't, same sort of thing. It really doesn't hurt when I move now when I do it that way. And it's like, well, what did I do? Is it the bracing strategy, or is it I just changed how she did something, and maybe neurologically the brain's like, well, that's totally different, so I won't add pain in. I'm not saying I know the exact reason that your back didn't hurt. I just know, I'm assuming that based on what we talked about and where we're getting some pain through that range, that if I can shore up that segment a little bit, that's my thought. I could be wrong, but like, if we're getting a little bit of shearing in that segment and I can get you to brace enough to where we're holding that still, now we're not nicking that scab, now we're holding that steady, and your body likes that. Mm-hmm. And same thing with that gal today. She's like, I haven't done that. And I said, she goes, but I didn't have back pain before my car accident. And that's what she was here for. And I said, no. She goes, so I got this because I'm weak or this? I said, no. You got in a car accident, made you whiplash, made your back hurt. I said, I wouldn't have touched anything. I would have just said, keep doing what you're doing, live life. But now that you're here and your back hurts, we're going to address it. Mm-hmm. And give you, it's like open your library a little bit of movement, right? Mm-hmm. Like you were moving only this way. Let's give you another way. And now our breadth of movement changes a little bit. And I have more strategies. I think that's a good thing too, variability of movement, right? You can brace the way you did. You got this other way you can do it. Now your body should be able to move in between things, and that's kind of the people say postural too. Like, what's your best posture? The next one. Like, you should be able to move in and out of things, and not just be so pigeonholed into this is how I move, right? It's like the guy on the conveyor belt, and he's only doing the same thing over and over, right? We should be able to open that up and teach. And teach. It's all teaching, though. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So one thing that I've seen, like with pain science, that you're getting into a little bit there, is just how you got some people who think that pain is all structural, mechanical, and you got some people who think it's all in your head. I'm of the mind that it's somewhere in the middle, like everything.
Yeah.
But there's no doubting that there is some psychological component to it, right? I think, like for me, when I was going through some of my deadlifts earlier. With you, there was a component of like my brain knowing that this is the movement that usually hurts.
Yeah.
And like almost like a little bit of residual ghost pain going on. Mm-hmm. But then as I did a couple of reps, it was like, oh, this is different. And then the pain was gone. Right.
And that's what we just talked about, right? And so you deal with that. And I'm like you. There it's in between somewhere. Greg Lehman said it really well at one point. He said, well, it was his course, actually. I mean, and his course is like, when does biomechanics matter? And when does biomechanics matter? Well, when you're moving heavy stuff or if you're in pain. Mm-hmm. Essentially, that's what I'm thinking. If you're in pain, biomechanics matter. And what I mean by that is we got to change. Can I change how you move to keep you moving, right? Mm-hmm. Or lifting heavy. You had better tighten things up because you 400 pounds. If you're not letting, people are going to hurt themselves. Yeah. So, but it's in the middle. It's there's a lot of times, like you said, you're going to associate. We're associative, right? So you're going to go, man, this is what hurt in the deadlift. But that's where I can uncouple that train car from that. Mm. So, like you said, this is where it hurt. Can I put you in a position that previously was painful? And can we make it not painful? So now your brain's going, oh, Okay, cool.
Different.
This is different. Now I'm not so scared. Yeah. And I don't have to protect, and I'm not going to make it hurt because I'm not scared. And that's a form of graded exposure and all these fancy words that they like to use. But that's the extent behind it, because again, now you're going to go, okay, I got it. I have learned again. And that's my biggest takeaway from anything we talk about, is how do you teach someone to take care of themselves, right? And that's the best part about what I get to do. And there is pain science. Sometimes you're going to be just like you were saying, that is pain science. Well, I'm scared. I felt this ghostly stuff. There's no tissue damage there or anything. Like it's associative, but like now we have to figure out a way around that, you know, but there also is spots where there's mechanical injury. Right. So they play off of each other, right? Yeah. And we can produce your pain again. It's not all in your head of like, just keep squatting, just keep deadlifting, and one day it'll go away. Because I think that's asinine. Yeah. Like I really do. Like that's some of the people. It's just like, well, just slow down what you're doing, or just, you know, I don't know what their explanations are, but I'm like, well, no, when I can make you move and you go, that's my pain, and I can do it again, that's my pain, and I can do it again, and we're like, push on your back, that's my pain. That's pain. I don't care what you want to call it. Like, and it's reproducible. It's not made up. It's, you know, and let's take it away. Yep. Let's fix it, take it away. You know, and we could talk about that whole thing all day long, you know. And it's like, but do you want, because then you'll have them all commenting on your post about we're idiots or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, like I told you earlier, for me, I haven't competed in a few years. It's something I really want to do. I was telling you about my client who just got back to the platform, got to nationals, and he doesn't have pain. Well, he gets some, what he calls like tenderness, which is normal. I guess if you're lifting heavy weights like that, if you're deadlifting 700 pounds,
good luck. You're going to have some back discomfort. Let's put it that way.
At times, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is also, once you do have pain, once you have experienced that pain before, like any sign that it's coming back is like you catastrophize it, right?
Totally.
You're like, oh my God, it's coming back. What was kind of funny about him is he had like a little flare up a couple weeks out, and he changed the way he normally goes about addressing it. Rather than laying up all day, just resting, icing it, he's like, you know what? I'm going to make it a point to go on some walks. I'm going to keep myself standing. And it resolved itself pretty quickly. Yeah. Whereas in the past, it might have been a whole week-long thing for him. Yeah. But I definitely want to get back on the platform. That's why I'm coming to see you as much as I can, for sure. Yeah.
You're going to, we'll get there. That's not a question of if we, you know.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Some PRs, man. Like I told you, we clean some of that stuff up where you're wasting energy and leaking it that you don't even realize, and PRs come. Yeah, and it's not even, it's like, wow, that was easier.
Well, and I think that for a long time I was stubborn. I just wanted to do it myself because I thought, I know all this stuff too, but I can't watch myself deadlift. Yeah. I can't watch myself squat. Right. If we come, and so if there's any piece of advice I can give to listeners who might be dealing with pain, is like I had to do the same thing with my client. I had to say, hey, you know what? You got to see some people besides me, because I'm not there to watch you. Right. I can watch videos, but that's even not the same thing.
It's hard, and people, you can do Skype or whatever and video chats and stuff, and I do them consulting with people, and it's like, man, I really wish you were here, because it's just easier. Like I use these, and you need to have some eyes, and like with coaches, just like my advice to even coaches is like, number one, obviously everybody needs a mentor, and just find the guy that aligns with what you like to think. Find someone that aligns with how you think now, and someone that you're like, I like what they do, but I don't really disagree, because don't just keep in this echo chamber over here, right? Sure. Because if you do that,
push your boundaries.
Right, you got to push your boundaries a little bit, because you're going to find out what you're not good at, but then get your eyes on as many people as you can. And then, like I told you at the beginning, like I would find people, wow, he's doing this. Call him up. Yeah. I'm going to come and see. Like, I need to know what you know, because like some of that stuff is just like your mind is just what is this whole new door that just opened? Now I better go learn this stuff, and get your eyes on people, and get your eyes. Because I think we just get stuck, healthcare or a strength coach, and we get stuck doing what we do. And for me, like, I have to go to a lot of courses because I am always afraid that I don't want to keep seeing things and telling myself I'm seeing things that aren't really there, right? Because as therapists and anyone in healthcare, you can do that. You can get there, and like you can if you really try hard enough, you can make things be what you want them to be. And I think the sign of at least someone, and even a coach, like if you want to see those things that are there, they'll be there if you look hard enough, right? Like, but it's trying to say, can you put yourself in some checks and balances there a little bit? And I go to those courses to check in and go, okay, am I seeing what I think, or am I getting too big for my britches here? Am I think, because it's scary. I don't want to be that one day that I miss that one thing. And it might be something serious. You know what I mean? It might be something that's not just fun lifting weight stuff. It's like I was training someone, her back hurt, and I just thought, wow, I didn't look at this, and maybe she's deadlifting, maybe it turns out it's bone cancer, and I didn't. No, you just don't want to do that, right? So I always worry, and I think that's what drives anybody that's you or I or the people we hang out with and the people we learn from to keep getting better, because you're just like afraid to you don't want to miss that. You want to be the best at what you do, or try to be the best at what you do, and give everybody what you think they should get, right?
And I think it's also important, like with Michael's been like a mentor. He'll say otherwise, like on the podcast I did with him, like how, because I taught him anatomy initially when I was his TA. Then, he's Michael, so he learned so much so quickly. But I'm not afraid to be like, hey, Mike, can you look over this case study for me? And I think I know what I'm seeing, but I want to make sure. And I'll send it to him, a fresh set of eyes. And that's, like, there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah,
there's nothing
wrong with that.
Admitting, I think people are afraid to look weak, or are afraid to look like they don't know. But if Michael can catch something that I couldn't, then that just makes it better for the client.
Totally. And like I told you before, like knowing who you are and what you're good at, like there's certain things that I surround myself with, the people that fill in those voids, right? That I know where I'm deficient in. For example, like I hate reading research. I love, like, but I hate going out and finding it, this. I'll read it once I get it. But like the process of, Michael doesn't.
No.
So Michael, he's the guy, right? Yeah. He's but I know, and then he and I can bounce and talk, and he'll call out BS for me and vice versa, right? But I think that's how it should be. And then I'm really good at putting things together, but like my front office gal, Kelly, she runs the place, but I'm really good at putting things together, and then she can organize it. I'm not an organized person. Like, I know what I'm good at, I know what I can find, but you surround yourself with those people. And that's the same thing. Like, Michael would tell me, he's like, you're one of my mentors. And I'm like, well, I think that street goes both ways. Yeah. You know what I mean? I've learned a lot of training stuff from him, and he and I sit, and he's taught me a lot about energy systems, which I'm fascinated in because I look at that from the rehab standpoint, right? And, he and I, he'd sit and, I met Michael when he was, I believe, at Camelback, before he worked at OPEX. And it was the same thing. Like, my office, like, it's open for anybody to come in. Like, people call up. I have a couple therapists now. I've got a naturopathic student. I've got all these people that just are like, hey, can we come in? Sure, anybody can come in. Like, I like teaching and showing what I do because there's no secret sauce. It's just making people work, right? But he was one of the first ones, and you know how he's like, I'm gonna come in, and he was in and asking questions, and it's like, man, that drove me to pick it up a little bit, and I like it. Yeah. And we've just grown our friendship there, and now it's like, okay, now I've got that, and I'm like, if you need to learn, I've got you, or I've got him, where people are like, man, these guys, they know the research on these certain things or these case studies. And I do too, but they're going to go find it for me. Sure. Like, it's one of those things. And, but that's how you build those networks and those relationships, is like, go out, talk with people, get a coach to coach you, and watch other coaches. You know what I mean? And just go, and you'll be like, hey, what about this? And don't be afraid to be wrong.
That's a big one.
I'm wrong a lot. And I tell my patients, if we're wrong, guess what? We're going to change it up. And they're like,
mine too.
Yeah.
My clients.
I'm like, listen, I think it's this. I had one with a student. This is a good story. Guy walks in, high hamstring stuff, and I'm like, he's telling me, I'm sitting there with it, and I'm like looking over at the guy, and I'm like, got this, completely got this. It's the guy is like, before we start, I got to run to the restroom, and I have the student, and I'm like, straight up, this is sciatic nerve, blah blah blah. Like, it has to be. Mm-hmm. It wasn't. I look like an idiot. Like, my point is, I got to that point, and I'm sitting there, and I'm, and the student's like, okay, all right. And they're there and I get through the whole thing, and I'm like, straight leg raise, slump, none of that. It's like, uh-oh. Like, I thought those were aces in the hole right there, and turns out his hamstring pain was hamstring pain. And I was like, well, I was way wrong on that. Yeah. And I'm like, I had to sit there and eat it in front of both of them, and I'm like, well, we got to the answer, but I sure look silly telling you that I knew exactly
that's a
what
bad feeling, right? It doesn't feel good when that
but they
happens,
laughed, and I'm okay with it because the guy we still got to the bottom of it. Yeah. But if I would have just been like, well, this is what it is, I'm going to give you your stuff, and he would go, but that didn't help me. Well, I'm not going to go back. I didn't learn anything. I didn't get any better. I'm not going to go back. And so I was okay to go, well, guess what? What I thought it wasn't. Yeah. And I tease people. I say, well, if I'm doing something, like if we were working on you, and I'll be like, oh, that didn't work. And then, well, what happened? Oh, I'm still assessing. Mm-hmm. And then if it works, then I'm treating. That's how I save myself a little bit. But
yeah, I tell my clients when they sign up, like, hey, you know what? Chances are the first thing we do, like the first program I give you, the first nutrition plan I give you, it's probably not going to work 100%.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to change things. And I'm going to need you to tell me what's not working.
Totally. It's like reading Harry Potter, but starting in the middle and trying to figure out what's happened before. Sure. Like you got to read a little bit, and then you can kind of infer what the past has been, right? Like I tell people, I'm like, we're coming into this reading in the middle of this book. I don't get to start from the beginning and learn everything. Right. So there's going to be a little bit of give and take, and being wrong is okay. No one learns by being right all the time.
That's true.
No one learns by being right all the time. So
being that you're a physical therapist, being that you love training, what does your training look like? What does a training week look like for you? What are you dealing with?
Man, it's not very good right now, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I do. So here's what I'll give you the last month. So last month has been, well, this is normally what it is. It fluctuates because now I got my kids and their sporting events, but. Okay. So I'll train here 1 to 2 days a week, normally on Thursdays, because then I play ice hockey, and I'm a hockey nut. So I'll train 1 to 2 days a week here. I play hockey on Thursday nights. So I go play men's league game, and it's fun. We higher level stuff. And then Saturday mornings, like tomorrow morning, there's a 6 o'clock hour and a half skate. Okay. So I go play hockey 90 minutes. So it's basically 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off for 90 minutes. Wow. And that's what 10 guys, it's just shifting. 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off. And I make sure that I just keep skating. So for 90 minutes or 45 minutes, I'm getting work in that. I leave there and I go over to OPEX, and they'll laugh because it's like I go work out there a little bit, but I also go there to hang out with friends and socialize a little bit. So I get some training in there. So I'm really only getting and I do some stuff here throughout the day, but I don't right now where I'm at. I don't have I'm busy, which is a good problem to have, but it affects my training. So I don't get except for a few days a week, I don't get a set aside. I got an hour and a half or 2 hours to do that. Because right now I got my oldest playing club soccer, my youngest playing soccer and hockey. So it's like, you got to fit them in where you fit them in right now. And like I say, sometimes, it'll be, after work, I'll get a couple sets in. But during the day, I'm having people deadlift and their session's over and I'm waiting for my next patient to come in. I'm going to go out and hit out 25 push-ups here and 15 pull-ups here and trap bar deadlifts here if it's laying on the ground. And, so I'm messing around that way all day long. So, but hopefully soon, that will change. I'm working on that because I'd love to change my schedule because I would like to get into a little bit more of a regimented training because I would like to get into some more powerlifting stuff. It's fun,
awesome.
So I get short legs and short arms and I'm kind of built for something like that versus CrossFit-y stuff. I mean, I did it a long time. I just like training, but it's not happening the way I want it to right now, which is okay.
That's fine.
It's the season of it not happening that way. So, but it'll change like.
But it's getting the job done, right?
I'm happy with things. Like I say, my lifting more right now is more playing hockey than it is.
Totally. Fine.
It's 4 days a week it's 2.5 days a week of lifting and 2 days a week of playing hockey, and that's where we're at right now.
That's good.
I would love to lift every day if I could, but it's just time doesn't,
Well, I think one thing I see a lot of with people coming in where they think they have to lift 5-6 days a week in order to get enough of a response for what they want. And okay, granted, if you're trying to be a power lifter at a competitive, be a competitive power lifter, a competitive bodybuilder, there's going to be some requisite amount of work you got to do. Yeah. But for the folks who come to me who are just general fitness kind of people, they'll be like, oh, and I think a lot of the times it has to do with like being afraid to work out less because of the caloric expenditure and not gaining weight. Yeah. But I see it all the time with my clients where I give them less and they get better. They get better results because they were actually just doing too much.
Too much, and cortisol and all that stuff, right? Stressing,
getting more rest, which is when you actually adapt.
Yeah. And give them less, and go for a walk with your wife and kids or your girlfriend, and see what that does for you too. You know what I mean? You just there's training is not just clanging and banging all the time. Sure. There's like you say, that's the beauty of coaching. Sure. And in your field, and that's why most of the people that I follow and learn from are more strength coaches, because you want to talk about watching people move. Get a strength coach that's done it for 40 years, and you're going to learn a lot from that guy because they've watched thousands of people do it, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, just like you're saying, I take stuff away, and they're like, "What?" But then they feel better. Yeah. And why? Because between work, and that's why I'm not so worried about my lifting right now. Like, feels pretty decent what I'm doing right now, and it's going to change, but it'll change when it changes. Yeah. And it always change, but it's always changing, but it's always going to be in there because it's fun. Sure. And it makes you harder to kill.
That's for sure. So I've seen a lot of a couple times you and Michael have been out getting some steaks. Getting some, is it scotch, whiskey?
See, this is the thing. Michael has taught me a lot. The one thing I've taught Michael is how to be civilized. Yeah. There you go. I'm a big fan of steakhouses. Okay. That's my thing. I like a good steak and a glass of wine and a good bottle of wine. And I'm a wino. I'm a wine collector. I'm a wine guy. I enjoy wine. I collect it. I love eating big chunks of meat. And I like things, and I take wine. I love wine. I do. I like pairing it with food. Like my little side hobby is trying to become a sommelier. I just enjoy, I think anything that takes craftsmanship, I'm down with. Like when people put their heart and soul into something. That's why I like bourbons. I like tasting them. I like, and that's what I take him to do. And he and I go sit and have good talks like this, and we'll have some bourbons and some wine and some steak, and we have. We do it probably quarterly. I think we do it. Sometimes more. Yeah. Sometimes less. But yeah, he's taught me a lot of stuff about nutrition, and then I tell him how to kill gut or improve his gut biome by drinking bourbon. Good level bourbons. So.
And a good steak never hurt anybody.
A good steak, man. And
unless you just watched Game Changers, then.
Yeah, well, then.
Probably thinking something else.
Soy steak.
Soy steak. Yeah. Tofu steak.
No, you can a McRib. That's what I think that's made out of, soy junk.
Well, I definitely will shamelessly put my name in the ring for joining you guys.
You're more than welcome anytime.
As a matter of fact, Michael and I on the podcast we said we'll have to do a steak and wine podcast with the three of us.
Done. Done. I'll cook us some steaks. We'll do it. Yeah, that would be fun.
Get a little silly maybe by the end of it.
That would be fun. I'll bring some bottles of wine.
Perfect.
And that would be fantastic. That would be fun to have the three of us sit and chat and see what comes out.
I might be the one that's quiet most of the time because honestly, you guys are.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
But yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it. So you have a website. Yeah. evolutionphysicaltherapy.com.
Evo Physical Therapy.
evophysicaltherapy.com. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about Jeff.
Yeah. new website. There is some mentorship stuff. I enjoy teaching people, and I don't really charge much for it. I don't charge anything right now. Maybe I probably should, but I don't think like I'm anybody that should do it. I just think, if we can help lift up, for speaking for my profession, if I can help lift up our profession a little bit, and what people think of what it is that we deliver, I'm in, you know what I mean? And so, if anybody's interested, you're more than welcome. If you're here locally, you can come on in, online, Instagram, Twitter, it's at Jeff B. PT, and Facebook's Jeff Beran, because I basically use my personal one as a business one. So,
that's how I do it.
But yeah, get a hold of me. I'm always willing to share information that I've gained, learn information from you guys and from you, and so just looking to help people get better.
Yeah, if you're a strength coach or an aspiring physical therapist, chiropractor, whatever,
anything,
if you want to be in this field, highly recommend reaching out to him, learning as much as you can from him. Try to get down here, shadow him for a couple of days, and I'm sure he would have you.
Another good site before we sign off is I'm on the board of it's called Rehab to Performance.
Okay.
And I suggest, and it's for coaches. It's rehab the number 2 performance.com.
Okay.
It's a great resource for people looking at, hey, where can I learn? What can I learn? It's got a list of a bunch of courses on there. We're a not-for-profit. We do a symposium every year. It's pretty cool. It's free to members.
Cool.
This year it's in St. Louis. I'm plugging it because a lot of what I've ever learned, the reason I'm on the board is because that has helped me get to where I'm at today.
Cool.
And it's for everybody in the medical profession, and it's what we have talked about, trying to bridge that gap between rehab and performance. And I know that's a buzzword. Everybody wants to rehab, bridge the gap and rehab to performance and all those things. But it literally is. It's saying everybody in the medical profession has a role to play, and everybody in the performance world has a role to play in taking that patient from I'm injured to optimal performance, whatever that means. And it's how do we do that? And it's a fantastic site. So I'd suggest you guys check that out if you would. And like I say, you're all welcome here anytime you want if you're local.
Awesome. Seriously, take him up on that.
Yeah. Do it. Seriously, I'm not joking.
Well, it was a pleasure. I know we'll do this again.
Yeah.
Because we only scratched the surface of all the stuff we can talk about. But
cool,
thanks so much for being on, and we'll see you next time, huh?
Appreciate it, bud. Awesome.